Is it too hot or not? That's the question we're going to answer in today's episode. Welcome back to Dark Pines Candles. I'm the owner, Gina Anderson. And today we're going to talk about the testing of temperature all the way through the candle making process. So first of all, you need to make sure you have your thermometer. That's how you're going to test your temperature. So I've got two different ones here today. I have the infrared thermometer, heat thermometer gun. I don't know what you want to call it. Let's see, does it have a name? Infrared thermometer. That's what it is. This, you shoot it onto the surface of your wax or whatever you're trying to measure the temperature of, and it gives you that surface temperature. This is kind of the same thing as they use when you got kids with fevers in school and they just kind of chink. That's what you get. This other one I have is the thermometer that you stick inside the liquid, and this is an instant read. So we are going to use both today because sometimes there is a temperature variation between the two of them because one's a surface and one's an internal. So we're going to go with both of them and show you that. Now, why do we need to test the temperature all the way through the process? The reason is because you're working with flammable liquids when it comes to fragrance oil, and even wax can be that way if it's too hot. It can catch on fire, which sounds counterintuitive when you're working with candles and flame, but that's the point of the measuring the temperature. The flash point is the temperature, the lowest temperature that the fragrance oil will go. It can go evaporate into the air and then like vaporize into the air and then be ignited. So you want to always make sure that you know the flash point of your oils because you don't want to catch yourself on fire or your customer. So the best place to really find that is in the safety data sheet from the company you're getting the oils from. Most of them that I have seen, they have it right there on the page where the oil is that you're buying. You'll scroll down and there'll be the safety data sheet down there that you can download. Some of them also have them on the bottle. So like I have this Candle Science Leather and Laudanum fragrance right now out here, and it has on the label, it has that it's approved for candles and soap, the percentages that you can use, and then down below it has the flash point of 237 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit, or 113 degrees Celsius. So we know by that we cannot pour this into our candle wax if it is higher than 237 degrees, which you're not going to do that because you're not going to have a candle wax that hot, thankfully. But I have a Black Type Barn fragrance here that they also put it on their bottle, which is very nice and very helpful. But if they didn't, you could go to their safety data sheet for this. This is a Lime Reserve fragrance, which smells pretty good. Their flash point is 190 degrees Fahrenheit and 88 Celsius for this fragrance oil. So as you can see, not all fragrance oils have the same flash point, and you do have to know that when you're making your candles, because you need to know your pour temp when you're going to be able to pour it into your wax. This is a brambleberry, sage, and lemongrass scent. It does not have the flash point on the label, so you do have to go to the website and actually look at it at their safety data sheet to figure out what the flash point of this oil is. Today, though, when we're making our candle, we're going to go ahead and use the Candle Science Leather and Laudanum. So I'll put these other two away. And we're going to use a coconut apricot wax. So that you also have to know the flash point for. So I went onto their website and I went to the product page for the wax and scroll down. There's a lot of great information on their page. So it's like when you print it, it's like 6 pages. But you get down there and so it tells on the wax, it tells the melting point and the pour temp. It tells you to heat it to 185 degrees Fahrenheit, which that's pretty typical. Most wax melters can go up to like 212, which is what mine does. And so I actually melt it at that point, but this is the suggested for a double boiler. So you're not scorching it. That's also the typical degrees that you would add your fragrance oil is 185 degrees, unless it has a flash point lower than that. And then it gives you a suggestion for pour temperature, which that's another stage we're going to test it. And when you're doing your candle testing, you want to write all that down and keep it on file in case something happens, so you can show documentation that you actually have done these tests and made sure that your candle is safe. Okay, so why don't we get started with making the candle and actually going through the process of testing the temperature as we go. So like I said, I'm going to use the Candle Science Leather and Laudanum fragrance oil, and I have a 4-ounce jelly jar that we're going to do about, it's going to be a 3.5-ounce candle by the time we're done. So we'll need 0.36 ounces of this fragrance oil. And I never measure this directly into the wax. I always measure it out on a, in a separate container first and then set it aside. And sometimes I make a mess because it's really easy to over pour. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab my wax. So I'll need 3.24 ounces of wax, and I'm going to grab it from my melter over here. Okay, so we've got that. And now we are going to test it out. I told you that wax melter holds it at 212 degrees. So let's see if it really does. We'll start with the infrared, and you just shoot it in there and hold it. That actually comes out to 178.5. And let's see what this one does. The read inside there. Okay, I don't want to be on Celsius because I'm not that smart. So it takes this one a little bit longer to get to the temp, but we can wait. I don't always like waiting though. That's why I've got the gun. Sometimes I'm impatient, but you don't need to be impatient. A lot of people also will just put this into their wax melter and test the temp of the full batch of wax, which not a bad idea. Totally not a bad idea. What it looks like is that my wax melter might not be up to temp fully yet. So we're at 162 with this one, and that one's at 178. But I want to give that another try again, this infrared, and see what it says. Because wax can cool pretty quickly. Yeah, it cooled down pretty quickly while we were doing that. So that went down to 165 degrees. So our fragrance oil has a melt point, or a flash point, of 237 degrees. So we're safe to put this in the wax because the wax is only 165 degrees right now. So we're going to put that in and just stir it up. And usually you just stir for a couple minutes. Nobody agrees on the time it takes to stir the wax and the fragrance oil together. Some say 2 minutes, some say 20 to 30 stirs. It doesn't matter. You just need to make sure you get it all incorporated. And you will see on your candle, especially if you add color to them, if you don't get it all incorporated, there's like these funky little designs on the top once it's cooled. They still burn, they still melt. It's not as pretty, and you won't have that even scent throw. So I do recommend making sure that you have stirred long enough to get it fully incorporated. Now I am using a crackling wood wick. It's 3.3 millimeters or thick, and 0.5. It's like a half an inch wide basically. So it works pretty good with this candle because it's got a diameter of 2.5 inches, and that's a pretty good size for that. But we're not going to know for sure if that's going to work with this oil and the wax combination until we do a test burn, which you should always do because you need to test at every stage of your process, especially when you're first making new recipes, and making sure that your wick is right, making sure that the jar is not going to explode, making sure that The burn is good. So I added I got a little bit extra wax here. So now let's check that temperature again. Yep, I was right on track. It's 133 degrees. I like to pour at between 140 and 130 degrees because it just gives me less sinkholes and craggly tops and stuff like that. So we're gonna let this cool for a while. And I wanted to talk about the scent, or I wanted to talk about temperature testing when you're burning your candles and doing tests on them. So I've got 4 candles here, different wicks. 2 of them are the 4-ounce mason jars, and 2 of them are my 2-ounce testers. And they've all got scent, some have color, some don't. But I want you to see what is happening here. So this one right here, this 2-ounce tester, this has my peach tea scent in it, and then it has some dye. Now it's using the same size wick as we had in the candle that we just made, but as you can see, it's flickering a lot. This has got a really huge melt pool. I lit these all at the same time about 25 minutes ago, and there's a huge difference in the melt pools and the flame of each one of them. So we're going to go ahead and take this thermometer, the infrared, and we're going to give this one a test. So where are we at here? That's at 118 degrees. It is fully melted all the way through to the bottom. That is overwicked. For this amount of time, that wick is too big for that candle. So it's really important to know what this is going to look like and how you want it, and testing it in the temperature, because like if somebody were to go and pick this up, it would burn their fingers because it's already too hot. And I'm going to test the outside of the container. So the outside of the container right here, where the wax is and melted, is 98.8 degrees. So you're not going to get like a 3rd degree burn or something, but it's hot it is overwicked. It's burning too fast. The one right next to it was lit at the same time. You can see the melt pool is way lower, and it's not going crazy. It's not having a super high flicker. This one, let's go ahead and test the temperature inside there. That one, the wax melted temperature is 93.6. Not bad. The wick is not going too crazy. The outside temperature is only 88 degrees of that. This one is definitely not going to burn me right now. Now let's go to the jars. So it's really important to temperature test your jars when you're anything glass or ceramic or breakable when you're doing your candles, because if they're cracked or if it's too hot, they can explode, and you don't want that. So you always got to make sure that you're using the right vessel, but you're also doing those temperature checks. So this one over here has the peach tea fragrance oil just like this does, but it has a cotton wick. I have an AL 140 in it. We're going to test that. So that's at 133.9 degrees. Let me make sure I wasn't like right in the flame. Yep, that was the wax temperature. And that's doing okay. The outside of the jar isn't too hot to touch, but let's go ahead and give that a quick test here. I'm at the top of the wax, and that's showing the outside of the jar at the top of the wax where it's melted is 87.1 degrees. That's fine. That is not overly hot. That's not going to crack the glass. That's not going to combust. So we're good on that one. This is not an overworked candle. This one is actually quite successful. So we're going to pull that away. And I'm going to pull this away and try not to burn myself. Okay, so we've already done that one as well. And this one just burned out. So let's give it let's relight it. Now, sometimes your wicks can get flooded. This one just needs a little bit of help to get started again. And it is on its way out. So this wick is not happy with me. And this may just be a wicking fail, and that's okay. Let me test the temperature of the inside of the wax. That's at 121.6. That's not bad. It's still trying to be lit, but it's not being very successful. I'm going to give it another go. Give a little extra help. Come on, fire, you can do it. So that wick might actually just not want to work with that fragrance oil and scent blend, and that's okay. Sometimes that's the case. The outside of the jar is at 82 degrees, so that's not going to crack and combust either, which are both good. So if this were to continue burning and the wick was able to catch itself up, which it looks like it might be trying to, this could be a successful candle. We got to see what it looks like once the wick really starts going. Because if it's really heavy and really dancing like this one is, that's not really what we want. We want it to be mellow but lit and not melting the wax and consuming the wax too fast. Because really this type of candle with this wax, that's like a 20-hour burn candle and sometimes a little more. So you really have to think about that. Like this is going to be, if I left this going all day, it wouldn't take all day. It would be about 2 hours and that would be done with as fast as, with as big as that wick is for this candle. So I'm going to blow that one out because it's not working for me. And look how much smoke comes up with it. That is another sign of it being overwicked. So this is a fail. We're not going to use that particular wick with this combination of wax to fragrance oil to color to container. I'm going to use something smaller. Now I do have smaller wicks. Like this one is another one I'm going to be testing pretty soon. This is a little bit of a different wax I just had on hand. But it's a smaller wick. You can see it's way thinner. It's, I think it's 0.375 centimeters wide. So let's give that a light and just see what it does. And we're going to have to temperature test this too after a few minutes. I still just want to work on this one for a second and see if we can get it lit again and stay lit. That's a very, okay, no. So I think that wick is pretty much drowned out. That's gonna be a fail too then, unfortunately, because it is, it doesn't want to stay lit. And that happens. I might switch this one to a cotton wick because sometimes some fragrance oils and scents don't work with a wood wick, and then that will also change the temperature of the jar and of the wax when it's lit, because as you can see there's very different temperatures between the fragrance oil, wax, and wick combinations that we have. I want to give these another test, the ones that are still lit. This peach tea one seems to be the winner at this point. But these two are both really doing well. So it's had a little longer. It's 120.7 degrees in the wax. Still really great. 83.8. 91.8 if I'm just above the wax line. Still really good. That's a really good temperature for this jar and for how the candle's going. So this peach tea is a winner. Like this is a successful candle. This is what you want to see and go with. So we're going to keep that one. And then I'm going to change the wicks of these other two because those were not successful, and one was burning too hot and one was drowned. So it wasn't burning it hardly at all. It burned for a while, as you can see, because there is a heavy melt pool, but it was lit the same time as the other ones, so it burned out too fast. And so that could mean that the wick is too big but it also could just mean it's the wrong type of wick. So maybe wood isn't going to work for this candle. This one that I just lit, this looks really good. Like that's a pretty decent flame. Even just starting, what are we looking at temp wise? The wax temp of that little melt pool is 80 degrees, 80.4. We're not going to have really a big temperature change on the outside of the container. It's 79.2 right now, but give it another like 20 minutes and then it would probably be a higher degrees on the container. But that is so far looking like a good size wick for this container and this wax to fragrance oil combination. So we'll see how it goes. But those are the things that you do have to go through your testing process for every time you change a combination in your candle recipe. You have to recheck that temperature. You have to recheck the wick sizes, and it all goes together. Like when you're doing that testing process, you're testing the wick to see if it works with the wax and fragrance oil combination, and testing the temperature is one of the best ways to do that, because you need to see if it's too hot. If it's too hot, you could burn your customer. If it's too hot, it could break the container. If it's too hot, it's going to consume the wax faster, and you don't want that in any of those scenarios. You also could get a flame that's too high and be very unsafe. So you really do have to make sure that you are testing your candles and you're testing the temperature at every stage of the candle making process. And when you go through and do your test burns, you're still testing that whole time with that one candle recipe to make sure it's right before you start selling it. So I wanted just to say thank you for your time. And if you have any questions about this, put them in the comments. You can go ahead and subscribe if you want to get notifications of the videos. Hit the little bell. And we will be back next time with some more tips and tricks. Have a great day.